This is a quick demo to show you how to start a new drawing and what you need to do to set up the drawing once you've gotten it started. When you've opened AutoCAD, this is AutoCAD 2015, there's a number of different ways to start a new drawing. As with anything in AutoCAD, there's usually several different ways to do what you want to do. So you can either go up here to the icon at the top and click on it and click New, and that's going to take you to select a drawing template, and then you can click open and you can start a new drawing. With 2015, they also have these options on this tab view. There's a couple of different areas here to note. There's an area where there's some notifications. There's also some recent drawings that you may have been in. There's this area where you can start a new drawing. I also want to point out that there's this Learn area as well, where you can find some videos and tips that might be helpful. So I'm going to go back to the Create area here, and now if I click on this button here that says Start Drawing, it's going to start a drawing from a default template that I've set up. What I want to do, I want to start from more of a blank slate. So I'm going to click on Templates down here. I'm going to click on the arrow, and I'm going to go into just the acad.dwt file. And that's a pretty generic template that we can start to work from. Now the first thing that I want to do once I've created a new drawing is I want to save it. So I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to do a Save As. And I'm just going to overwrite this drawing here and click Save. And then the second thing I want to do is I want to set my units. And again, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. There's a button down here that you can adjust your drawing units down at the bottom. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here because I want to make a few other adjustments. So I'm going to click on the big red A here in the upper left-hand corner and go into Drawing Utilities. Then I'm going to click on Units. And under Length, I want to change the type from decimal to architectural. I also want to adjust the precision from 1/16 of an inch to 1/32 of an inch. And this becomes important as we get into text because some of our text sizes are going to be set to 3/32 of an inch. And if we leave it set to 1/16, we're not going to be able to see that difference, and all of our text will look like it's 1/8 of an inch instead of 3/32. Now under Angle, I'm also going to adjust the precision and give myself 2 decimal points. And this just helps, especially as you're getting started, be able to see if your lines are actually drawn straight, horizontal, vertical. And so it just helps you see that precision a little bit better. So now I'm going to click OK now that I've made those adjustments. And the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the drawing limits. You don't really have to adjust them, but I find that it gives me a little bit more flexibility when I'm zooming. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in LIM, and then it's going to come up on the command prompt down here. And it's saying my lower left-hand corner is 0, 0, which I'm going to leave. And then my upper right-hand corner, I'm just going to make 500 feet, 500 feet, and hit Enter. And that just allows me a bigger area to zoom without having to worry about just being constrained to where I've drawn. So I want to talk a little bit about some of these buttons that are at the bottom, because these are very useful tools down here. The first area here is the grid and the snap mode, and they're related. You can see that the grid is on the screen here. You can have the grid on, you can turn it off. Whichever you prefer. I tend to draw with it off, but I do want to show you one thing that you can do. I don't use this very often, but it's important to kind of know that it's there. This is the snap mode. And if you turn your snap mode on, and let me start drawing, what it's going to do is it's going to lock you in. Let me zoom in a little bit more here, so you can see that I can't select anything between 0 and 1/2 inch. So it's locking me at the 1/2 inch. You can adjust that by going into the snap settings and make the snap whatever you want. Like I said, you may find this useful in some applications. I personally just draw with it off. And I'm going to turn off the grid as well. Going along the bottom here, I want to talk a little bit about ortho mode and polar tracking. You want to have one of these on. Personally, I use polar tracking, but let me show you what ortho mode does. What ortho mode does is it locks you into drawing only horizontal or vertical lines. You can't do anything else. With polar tracking, what you can do is you can set it to a specified angle. So if I set it to a 45-degree angle, what it does is it still allows me to draw to any angle, but it kind of locks the cursor in. As I get to 45 degrees, it kind of locks it in, so it makes it easier for me to draw angles based on a 45-degree angle. It also gives me, the 0, the 90, and all of those. So that's a really useful thing. Now, object snap tracking, that we'll get into that a little bit more as we get into object snaps, but you want to have that on. Um, and let me just show you briefly what that does. If I go in here and I'm going to draw, and I'm just going to draw a square here, what I can do is I can make it reference another point. So I'm just going here, you can see I'm getting a green dashed line, and it allows me to reference another point. Now, object snap is the next one here, and you also want to be drawing with that on. It allows you, and I'm going to click on this arrow here, it gives you different settings that you can select and have always available to draw to. So endpoint, midpoint, intersection, perpendicular, those are probably the most common ones. And let me just show you what that does. If I'm drawing a line and I want it to start at the midpoint of this line, you can see I'm getting a little triangle symbol here. So I can select the midpoint and draw from there. So that's also very useful. And going across, we don't really so much need to worry about these. There's one here though that I want to talk about, selection cycling. I like to draw with that on because what that does is it allows you, if you've got, I'm going to draw a line right on top of this line here. If I've got it on, what I can do is if I want to try to select, say I want to select this square that I first drew, it was called a polyline. What this does is it allows me to then select that. So I like to have that on, but everything is based on personal preference. And as you move across, we're going to get into the annotation scale more with text, but down here, like I mentioned earlier, this shows you what units you're using. I also just want to point out these tabs at the top. These will take you to different areas. They're called ribbons, and they've got different command areas on them. The one that you're going to start with most is on the home, where you've got your drawing functions, your modify functions, the layers, properties. Those are the most common ones as you're going to get started. So that's kind of a brief overview of the interface and setting up the drawing to get started with.